first, then fence board, and then special use, if that.
They're all noticed up at the same
Right,
time, so it's your discretion.
Yeah, and that's because I think in terms of time that will be taken, the last one will take more time, and we should not have as many people cooling their heels waiting. Okay, let's call the meeting to order for the zoning board. Roll call.
Chairman Rowan?
Here.
Carlson?
Here.
Also, sir?
Here.
Friedman is absent. Kaplan?
Here.
And Satter?
Here.
Okay, the first item is the minutes for the April 17, 2017 zoning board meeting. Everybody's gotten the minutes in their packet. They looked okay to me. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And no one opposed? Okay, those are approved. The next item is a public hearing to consider a request of Molly and Mike Acalino, I hope I got that right, for an east side yard setback and floor area ratio variation for a proposed rear two-story addition and deck at 375 Adams Avenue. So whoever is going to speak in favor of this, come on up here and tell us who you are. And when we do this, we're going to swear in everybody in the vicinity, so we only have to do that once. So if you're thinking of speaking in favor of or against anything that's happening tonight, swear in now. And Nathan, if you could read you got the little.
Okay, here we go. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in the matters about to be heard?
Thank you. Okay. Tell us who you are and why you think we should grant this.
Good evening. I'm Healy Rice. I'm the architect for the project, and I'm here with Mike and Molly Aquilino, who are the homeowners for the project. We're seeking permission for a couple of variation issues in order to build a two-story addition on the rear of their legally non-conforming home. We currently have a 6.5-foot setback on a lot that requires currently an 8-foot setback. The home was originally built in 1925 and predates the current requirements. So we're seeking permission to extend that non-conforming wall north approximately 20 feet in order to build a new kitchen and family room and a new master bedroom and bathroom above it. The second part of our variation is using an existing attic, or actually recreating an existing attic. We have a walk-up attic currently, and the existing attic rafters are 2x4s. And in talking to the contractors, when we do our addition, we will be putting a new roof on the back half of the house. We would like to remove those 2x4s and build a conforming 2x10 structure that gives us ability to use that attic, insulate it properly, and use it as finished space. Currently, I mean, just to sort of run through our application, the house has a tiny kitchen. We're seeking to do a kitchen and family room on the first floor that would be more in keeping with the neighborhood and certainly other homes in the area. And then similarly in the back, a new master bedroom. There's only one bathroom on the second floor. The owners, they have 4 children, so we're looking to make this a family house that they can stay in for a long time. The house to the east is set way, way back on their property, so our extension of that 6.5-foot wall will have no impact on their lighter air. Even if somebody were to tear that down in time, their lot's 80 feet wide and they'd have to be at least 8 feet off the property line, so it would still be well away from our home. I think those are really the big points of the hearing, and we'd be happy to address any other questions.
Nathan, have we gotten anybody objecting among the neighbors?
No.
Okay.
In your packet, you have a list of the neighboring properties that were directly notified by the mailing, and I did not hear from any of them.
So, and as I understand it, you're not changing the exterior appearance, but because you're having to rebuild the attic instead of sort of futzing with the attic you don't fall into grandfathering, and that's
Exactly.
why you're here.
Right, that square footage is really the bonus, or mostly the bonus that would be granted if the roof were original, so.
Okay. This seems pretty straightforward to me. Anybody have any questions about this? Is there a motion?
I would like to
Oh.
clarify just one thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if you caught that in the staff memo. After this matter was
Oh,
noticed.
the 11% and the 15%?
Right.
Yes.
So just for your information, FYI, after this was noticed, we discovered a discrepancy in the total square footage of attic space. And because this meeting and the specific request before you was noticed at 11%, and because they're anxious to get started on their construction project, they're requesting that you consider the 11% this evening, and they'll come back in August for the additional
Okay.
4% needed to get to the 15.
All right, and you're sort of trusting us.
That's
but
my
it-
error.
but-
I calculated the 7
Okay.
feet instead of 5 feet. and that's the difference.
You're trusting us. This seems to me, and I think pretty much to everybody else, that this is straightforward. It's good for you, it's good for the town, and so 11%, and we can't promise because there's be a new public notice, and maybe somebody will come out, but we understand that we really should give you the last 4%. Is
Question real quick. The neighbor to the east, that the house that's set back in the rear, that house, you know, my experience and what's going on, Glencoe does appear to be a tear down candidate. Do you talk to the owners of that property and tell them like what you were planning on doing there, or do you try to like, approach them and say, hey, we're looking for this variance because, you know, we haven't heard any?
We did not. The house is actually rented right now.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't have the owner's information. Not necessarily an excuse.
It still seems to me like a pretty reasonable request. And
Is that a
again,
question?
yeah. No, it's a good question. We care, when people come before the zoning board, we know that what you want to do with your house is really important to you. We also recognize it could be really important to the neighbors.
Right. In this case, it's probably developer investor, however, and maybe you never got the notice.
Well, you know, we give notices. That's all we can do.
Curiosity, what are you intending to do with the attic?
It'll be an office in the front and a storage area in the back.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second? Let's have a roll call.
Commissioner Carlson,
Yes.
Commissioner Elsesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sater, excuse me, and Chairman Rowan.
Yes. Congratulations.
Motion
Good luck
approved.
with your project, and we'll see you next month for your last 4%.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next item is a public hearing to consider a request of Heather Fields, and I may get this wrong, Ashok Bhatia, for a garage door with variation for proposed addition at the properties at 45 Old Green Bay Road and 224 Scott Avenue. And if I butchered your name, I apologize.
Not at all. You were very close. It's Badia.
Badia, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us who you are and what we should do. And this is a little interesting. Let me ask you a question. I think and maybe this is a legal question. So we're being asked to approve a variance, but the variance can't go forward unless the two lots are merged, and that requires that's a different board that does that. Is it proper procedure, and if so, how come that we do this first?
There are some codes that would provide that one, for instance, like a plan commission or ZBA would be able to have concurrent jurisdiction over multiple requests for relief in cases like this. The Glencoe code does not have that, so it's taken serially. I think Nathan could probably speak to It may just have to do with the vagaries of scheduling when the Plan Commission meets and notice.
I would just add that this is the process that we've followed before when we've had something come up like this.
Okay.
Because the subdivision is, I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry.
Does the Plan
It-
Commission
the-
have final say over the consolidation?
Well, no, the Plan Commission will make a recommendation on the proposed consolidation to the village board. But this potentially is a deal breaker in terms of whether they're going to divide, how they're going to combine the properties, which is why we thought they should come here
Okay.
first.
Okay, well, yeah, it's all deal breakers. So just understand that whatever we do, it's subject to the consolidation being allowed, because I don't think we have the power to grant a variance unless the two lots are consolidated. And with that in mind, let's hear it.
Thanks to everyone for your time this evening. We're very appreciative of your efforts, both the staff and the board. I'm Heather, and this is my husband, Ashok. We are actually fairly new to this community, although as the years pass, I guess I can't say that anymore. We've been married 20 years. We lived in a community of Milwaukee called Whitefish Bay that's very similar to this community. It's on the lake, and it's an urban neighborhood with a very small town feel. So we looked at a number of communities and very intentionally decided to move here. We love the old houses, but we love the trees, the parks, all the greenery, and that's what attracted us to this lot. So if you've seen the plot, our house is unique in that it's a corner lot, and the entire front of the yard is very many mature trees. When we moved there, the house next to us was abandoned and not very well boarded up. It had grown over the sidewalk, and we basically, when the lot was going to be purchased by a developer, we contacted the owner and asked if she'd be interested for us. And one of the primary reasons, really the reason we did that, is that both of our moms are older, and we wanted them to live with us, and unfortunately they love us, but not that much. And they were not going to live in a bedroom with two little girls down the hall. And so we thought it would be great to buy the house and rebuild it for them. That house is almost entirely non-conforming, and unfortunately, because it was left vacant for so long, we learned very quickly that we bought it as is, so we had no idea what we could do with it. And we can't reconstruct the home as it is. And so we actually had worked with A. Perry Homes, and the folks that you see here before us today, John and Tony Perry, because we had some real problems with the drainage in our yard that were quite serious. Our yard turned into a pond. And that was really a problem for two reasons. One is obviously the pond that flooded our basement, but we are on a high lot, so we're very close to our neighbors. And I will tell you that one of the primary considerations that we've had in going through this process and in choosing to work with A. Perry is that they were so considerate of our neighbors and really worked with us to minimize the impact of a huge sewer project. I will say that the staff at the village was incredibly helpful with us on that project as well. We didn't require a permit, but we had to redrain everything. So back to our project now, we hired them to work with us to design something that would preserve the feel of the lot, and most importantly, would allow us to retain all of the mature trees that surround the outer part of the structure, the non-conforming structure on 224 Scott. So that is why we built the addition we did, because the area does have so many drainage issues. I very much wanted to use our existing driveway. I don't think we should be putting another driveway, and if we did not, we need to build the home we need for our moms to live there and have a place to park the car. We need this additional footage to be able to make use of the garage space. So that's why we're asking for this. That's who we are. Certainly, I would be glad to answer any questions, but I'd also love the rest of our team to have a chance to explain to you more of the engineering part of this as to why we need the variance.
I could just add one thing real briefly. We did contact our neighbors.
Oh, thank
so
you.
the five neighbors that would see the proposed garage lot consolidation project. It's probably in the package, but there's a note from five of them who would be the garage supporting the project.
Yeah, and just so you know, we actually reached out to more than just those neighbors who signed that. We reached out to them early on in the project, our neighbors right next to us, on either side of us, early on, before we even had drawings, and let them know what we were considering doing. And we actually went around and showed everybody the plans. And several of them had asked if we needed their support. And we talked to Tony, and he said, yeah, that would be a great idea. So not everyone who saw the plans signed, but we didn't go to people and say, will you sign this? We said, we're your neighbors, here's what we're doing. We want to let you know you'll probably get notice in the mail. We haven't filed it yet, but we want you to see what we're doing so you can provide us feedback now when we're at the planning stage. Everyone was very gracious, and to my knowledge, it was one of our neighbors who did contact the village to see more of the plans, and I think that he felt like he wanted to see what we had submitted, so he was very receptive, and we sent him the plans in advance. But everyone's been incredibly supportive, and of course they want us to retain the trees and get rid of the structure, quite honestly. So
Nathan, have we gotten any objections from anybody? Unless they're, subject to here tonight.
Nothing formally in writing. I did meet with the neighboring property owners. I believe it's 206,
That's
Scott?
To the northeast.
yes.
Okay, yes. A couple weeks ago, the main intent of that meeting was to review the plans. They had some concerns just about potential harm to trees and some other matters that really were unrelated to this specific variation request. And he actually called me back today to say that he wouldn't be attending the meeting tonight, but that he felt reassured based on the meeting that I had with him, and realized that some of his objections were unrelated to this specific request.
So let me ask you another question about this specific request, because I've been on I don't remember this ever coming up when I was on the village board 100 years ago, and I've never seen it come up since I've been on the zoning board, this garage door thing. What's that about? Because I don't recall ever having anybody come in and ask about garage door width.
There have been a few, again, just from working in the building department for 16 years, I know sort of on the periphery enough about some of the action that's taken place here at this commission. I know there have been some requests, I don't have the specific addresses, for what were 3 garage doors, I believe, to face the street, and oftentimes they, I believe, brought in additional documentation to show how they may be screened or not fully seen from view. I don't honestly know the full history of why this provision was created, but I can guess that it was in response to something, because that's often how a lot of the zoning provisions are created. They're in response to something that nobody really expected, so how can we regulate that in the future? So the way that the provision is written is it's less about the number of doors in this particular district, and it's more specific to the total width of garage doors that face the front property line or the street.
And this one's a little, because it's, if
We're
they
we're
do it,
not
they
we're
have
not
two
on a
lots.
Chicago street grid
Right.
here.
There are two lots that come together, and the front is moving.
Correct.
And the pitch they've made is that it's going to be screened by all the trees that they're saving.
Correct, and I would note that this is an authorized zoning variation up to 27 feet maximum.
Is there an existing garage there now? That's part of the house?
It faces the street, and it's really, it's a one-car garage, but it faces the street and would require another parking lot, or another driveway.
Okay.
And we don't want to, we were looking to just really use our main driveway as the main part of it.
So is it detached then?
No, it's attached to the house,
Oh, okay.
actually.
It's kind of in the middle of it.
Just a moment.
There's the two lots.
Tell us who we
Lot-
are. Tell us who you are.
John Anstad, staff architect, Ray Perry Homes. I'm here with Point Perry, architect Ray Perry Homes as well. There's two houses. So on 224 Scott, there's a single car garage that faces the front. And then on 45 Old Green Bay Road, there's a 2-car garage that faces the front as well. So currently there's 3 cars that face the front of the street.
And when you redo this project, there will be 3 cars that face the street.
Well, actually, not really. It depends on where you draw the line of the street. That's the uniqueness of the property, is that it curves around, and actually more so, and I cannot give you the geometry of it, that was not my specialty in school, but if you had a flat end to our house, you would see, if the street was flat, you would see the single car garage of the tear down part, the whatever structure, and then ours. We're actually angling it, so if you were standing in the same spot, you would see no garage at all. Because if you were standing at the end of the driveway, you would see the end of the house. No garage doors or anything. They're all going to be along this line. But over here, because the lot curves around, someone sitting over by the Goldbergs, you could cross, and I guess it would be hard given our lot. If you could see through all the trees, you might be able to see the additional. You would see the garages there.
So the trees then that you purchased and put in were in anticipation of kind of?
No, actually, I don't know if you know the story of that, but Mr. Hood, that lot had been uncut and unmowed for years. So the minute we bought it, we mowed it and we cleared all the brush out the front. And we have a dog, our kids play on the sidewalk. You could not walk on that sidewalk. You had to go on the grass. It was that overgrown. It had been allowed to, all these huge bushes. We took them all out and we cleaned up the yard. We added some additional, like we painted at his request, the boards black uniformly. There were some black and some not black, so we painted them all black like he asked. And when we cleared out the front, he called me almost the same day and said, "You have to fix that. I don't like to see it." And I said, "What do you want us to do?" And so we bought all those trees and had them planted within weeks. We just had to get them all and get them installed. So we did all those arborvitae, the tall ones, because he didn't want anyone to be able to see it once we cleared it out. But I guess it was okay overgrown and not cleared out. But I do understand his point. The overgrowth did block a lot of it, so I think that was his concern. But we were really just trying to be good neighbors and clear the sidewalk so people could walk on the sidewalk. So, but we love the trees now, and we would not change them. I mean, they actually look kind of nice, and our neighbor across the street actually, was eager to know that we would keep them. So, but yeah, no, we didn't. We had hoped originally at that time to rebuild the house, but that was not going to be possible as it turns out.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, can you tell me, what's the size of the lot going to be once it's consolidated?
Total square footage?
Yeah.
Nate, do you have that number for me, please? I do have a quick PowerPoint too that I think might answer a lot of questions.
Okay.
Do you want to roll through that?
As long as it's quick. So I don't think you're going to get a hard time from us, and we have other people. So, but
I don't.
but if you make it, if it's a few minutes, I could be wrong. We haven't talked about this ahead of time, but if just.
Okay.
Well, what we can do then is just address the concerns. We don't have to say how great we are. Just
And Nate should be able to find
It's
us.
about 34,000 square feet.
So then now you have a conforming lot for the
Yes,
RA
yes.
district, and what you're asking for is fairly nominal, in my opinion. First, I'd also like to express my admiration for what you're doing to take care of your parents and provide, build a coach house. It's a very admirable thing, and my wife and I live on Green Bay Road, and we did the same thing. So, but our house is in the rear yard, so it doesn't we don't have the garage issue because they face the side yard, so side load.
Well, we're taking out a non-conforming lot and a non-conforming building and consolidating all of it into everything conforming
Right.
and maintaining the trees and all
So what could be two houses with two
Yeah.
two-car garages is just
Oh.
now one house
I-
with one
this-
big garage.
We've had hard stuff come before us, assuming you get approved with the rest of the stuff you need approval for. This doesn't seem hard to me.
And
Abe?
not to take anything away from my parents, but what I love about this project and reading through all the materials is the attention and care that you put into the trees and to preserve that element of
I
it.
have to tell you, even before we bought the property, we started treating the one tree that was dying. I mean, we love those trees, they're so beautiful. We're really lucky that, we live in such a nice neighborhood, so, but thank you. But I'll tell you, my husband thinks I'm a little crazy because, we've really tried to save more than we should probably, but.
And it's admirable.
Well, thank you.
Is, anybody else want to ask any questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Let's do a roll call.
All righty.
Oh, and this, the motion should include that this is subject to getting the other approvals, which are a precondition to having this kicked in.
Great. Commissioner Carlson,
Yes.
Commissioner Elsesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Yes.
Commissioner Satter,
Yes.
and Chairman Rowan.
Aye.
Motion
Congratulations.
approved.
with the
Congratulations.
project. Welcome to Glencoe. When I got on the,
My daughters were moving in
Yeah.
with my mother. and
Yeah.
that would be
You'll never see 'em.
I don't wanna be with us anymore.
They'll go over to the coach house and they'll feed them over there. You'll never see them.
I think I'm right that when I joined the village board back in 1985, the village manager, a guy named David Cole, and I think he had been the village manager of Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin.
Are you kidding me?
I think I
Oh,
believe he was.
wow. Yeah, it is. Well, thank you for your time.
Good luck.
Okay, that is it for the zoning board tonight, unless anyone has a public comment that they know is related to the zoning board. If you have a public comment and you forget, you're going to get 2 more chances because we have a fence board and a zoning commission. Anybody have anything for the zoning board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So, next item is the fence board. Let's call the fence board meeting to order and have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Carlson,
Here.
Commissioner Elsesser,
Here.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Here.
Commissioner Satter,
Here.
and Chairman Rowan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, the next and the first item and the only item we have on the fence board is a request of Emma Smith, and tell me how you say your last name. It's not even hard. Thank you. For a fence height variation along the west property line at 278 Scott Avenue. So tell us, whoever wants to speak, tell us who you are and what you want us to do. And let me say, just sort of warning, we have sort of a view about zoning board stuff. The fences are tougher. And I don't know that I've ever seen a 13-foot fence requested since I've been here, and I don't remember any, so do your best.
I will. Thank you very much. I'm joined by my wife, Emma, and a consultant that we've worked with in the past, Mike Freiberg of New Look Development. He's an architect, engineer, he's a Renaissance man, so he'll try and help us here. So we're recent, joiners or recent addition to the Glencoe family. We actually work with Pinotop Friends and our agents that actually helped us to settle on Glencoe in the North Shore, here as well with us, Howard and Susan Myers. And we love the neighborhood, and we moved from the city to come in to really raise our family. We have a child, Tristan, who is just turned 1, and we're hoping for more, God willing. And so we're at that point in life where that's our focus. We liked the house. It was the Havens. I don't know if any of you know them, but they used to live there. And we bought the house from them. The Havens had older children when I believe they moved in, and they were at a different point in life, and they've now kind of moved on out of the area. So the hardship for us really is, I think we're in a unique situation in that we are right at Hubbard Woods, and the Metra diesel engine actually pulls up right at the house with just some foliage really, and the incline to the house. There aren't any neighbors on the side that we're asking for, and we started noticing some issues with our son's sleeping pattern. In that the Metra, as you probably all know, runs from very early in the morning all the way to past 12:31. And what would happen is, while the noise was manageable as manageable for people, even though again we're very unique in the sense that if you're living down the track, it just goes through. You get the. We have the Metra kind of stop there, and it idles and it's really loud. And we actually then, when we noticed this issue, spoke to the doctor, and they said it was the low frequency hum that actually the babies are very sensitive to, and he would wake up and then take a while to go back to sleep each time when he went to sleep. So we started looking at solutions, and we got a consultant in, and they came in, did a bunch of measurements, and a lot of measurements and a lot of cost, and the solution that they came up with using geometric construction was where the diesel idles, and again the diesel has actually been idling longer and longer. I don't know if there's some signaling issues or more throughputs through the lines, but where it sits, they were able to do a geometric construction that if you had and it's 12 foot by the way, and I know it's a minor 12, 13, but the post would probably have to be slightly higher than the actual fence height. But using that geometric construction and a particular type of plywood or wood called plywall, they believe we can actually get 50% reduction in the noise level. And really that's really the crux of it is, can we do that? So when we spoke with John Hood, and unfortunately he's not here, I'm not sure I think he handed over to Nathan, but we kind of looked at it, and they were trying to explain to us kind of what your concerns would be. One, is it a unique situation? Are you about to set a bad precedent? We don't believe that's the case here, in that we are actually the last house in Glencoe, and we back onto the Metra station and the line. So when we spoke to our neighbors, we went to every neighbor. They kind of say, "Why are you here?" Because we went to each neighbor to say, well, we understand the right thing would be to let you know that we're planning to have a fence that would border on that on the Metra station and the line to help us with this issue, and they were fine with it. And really, I think that's probably the crux of it. I think generally speaking, it is a hardship because we plan to have more kids, and we're hoping that there can be some help here and understanding.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So would the fence just be on the part of the yard that abuts the tracks, or is it also going to come on the sides?
No. We do have a nice waterfall here, but it's going to be. So this is the house. This is the station. This is where the Metra diesel pulls up, and this is where the fence would be. It would not kind of wrap around or anything like that.
Okay. Do any of the neighbors who similarly are up against the tracks have fences?
Yeah. So in my right up there, we actually walked around, and as soon as you walk down this way, you're in Winnetka, and totally different country apparently, because they allow up to 10. They start the discussion at 10. So you do see a lot of folks with 10 feet, etc. Once you're in their line. And we fully respect that this is not an area.
Where's the Green Bay Trail?
So the Green Bay Trail is right on the Metra track. It's kind of parallel to the Metra track, so if you're riding your bike you know, you're right next to the track.
On which side of the track?
up against the trail?
No, it's not. So the fence is, so the Green Bay Trail is here. Then there's a slight incline, the slope,
yeah.
and then you get to the houses.
But there's a small pedestrian pathway that kind of wiggles right along. You can kind of see it on the survey. It's a sidewalk that then leads over to the pedestrian bridge, you know, at the Hubbardwood station. Isn't the lot that's to your south kind of an L-shaped lot of your neighbors?
Yeah, it is.
So he's still in. So does he have that unusual characteristic of having part of your property in Glencoe and part of it in when that guy like
I
Scott
believe
Avenue does?
that particular property is all in Glencoe.
I do believe it's all in Glencoe. However, the way that lot is shaped, and since they bought that L-shaped piece, it's just their yard. So they don't really feel any of that. The only portion of the house is directly east of their property, and then where they have that area is just yard. So it was, slightly off when he said that every house to the south, but every house to the south becomes Winnetka just after that flag lot. And then it's just that
I just
piece.
can't remember that house. It's a very big house, and it has a lot of property.
They added 2 or 3 lots in that house.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the plat of survey on the house, that part of your house which faces the railroad track, that's the garage. Is that right?
Yeah, the garage bay faces there, but it's a kind of a 1-level garage. Yes, that's right. But it's not. If you're saying does that give shielding, is that where you're going? Or?
No, I'm just trying to figure out the geography of the plat of survey. But that does raise a good question. I'm not an engineer. I'm taking all of this information at face value. Wouldn't the garage likewise serve a similar purpose to prevent the noise from the train coming out as opposed to just the fence?
When it comes to sound waves, and again, I'm not a sound engineer, I'm a civil engineer, but the way that the sound waves work, that garage is much too close to the house to actually provide any protection the way that it continues to expand. So in order for it to work in this type of arrangement, it needs to be further away in order to block that. The garage itself even still blocks only just that piece. The bedrooms are all upstairs. That sound wave immediately passes above that garage and really affords no protection whatsoever in that particular case.
Yeah, and in addition, the garage, is only a portion of the footprint of the house. It's not, you've got part of the house still in the front, the lounges, there's some rooms, and also.
What direction does your son's bedroom face?
Most of the bedrooms are facing that way, actually.
Facing the tracks?
The track. His bedroom is right on the tracks, unfortunately. The master bedroom is then off from there.
I have somewhat of a sensitive question. Hopefully this is not too much lawyer coming out of me. But is there any direct correlation between the noise that the baby and the sleep patterns?
Well, we see the correlation in that when we lived in the city, which with all the sirens and things that go on there, he was actually, which are higher frequency, he was actually fine. And we see it now when, he'll wake up, he goes to bed at 7, 8-ish, and he'll wake up 3-4 times before the metro shuts down. And it'll take another 15-20 minutes for him to go to bed. So the move from the city to the suburbs, we saw that clear distinction there. If you're asking about medical studies for long-term effect, I don't know that. But you can tell, you can kind of tell that there was a difference in him when,
And there's a fence there now, right?
We do. So we have a fence on part of it, but it's pretty much a 6-foot fence. I think it's to code, and it's for probably half of the line. So we would be doing the whole line of that side. In addition, this fence that we are looking at, I'm not sure if they give you any specs on it, but It is more of a compressed wood, so it is more of a special fence specifically for this. And in some cases, you actually see it used in, residential areas that are close to different noise sources, highways, train tracks, etc. And you also see it in commercial applications as well. But it's also it's an aesthetically pleasing fence. It's wood, and you can stain it any color, etc.
And so the slope then the slope is from the fence down, right? So your yard is flat.
So you've got a yard, you've got the fence, and then
the slope.
and then
to
yes, the
tracks.
slope to the tracks.
Anybody else have questions, or should we start talking about this?
I've got a few more questions. Have you looked into other potential remedies?
We have. So they looked at all the different options. The house is actually it's not an old house. It is early 2000s. So the technology is recent technology. So the sidings and things like that are all very, very good technology. The windows are double paned. Potentially could go triple, but then they're saying that would be a marginal increase, but also obviously cost would then come into it. And there's also, because right now we shut him tight. We close the windows, close all our hunker him down. Obviously, still an issue, and he's always on air conditioner. So it would be nice actually if you could once in a while open the windows. To be honest with you, so the window thing that we're not, it's not necessarily the most ideal situation. And yeah, the sound consultants we had came in, and I think it's a memo from them in there that was part of their materials.
Did the doctors ever indicate that reducing the noise level by half would straighten out the baby's sleeping pattern, or would the noise level, even at a half level than it is now, pretty much have the same effect?
Yeah, I think it's tough for them to. They didn't say you needed X%. To us, if you want to get. So there's a noise level chart here that might help give some light to that, but we don't necessarily have a physician's statement around it, to be honest. But they've said that anything you can do to drastically reduce this would help. The other thing with this particular fence is it's actually more, sound is made up of several frequencies, and this fence would actually help with that low end frequency where the issue is with the and and so this would also be very helpful, because that low end frequency where there's a lot of the issue will also be helped. But I think if you look at the noise levels here,
Yes.
and we can pass this around. It was also included in your packs. I'm not sure if you saw it.
So on this chart, the doctor never said that at 40 or 50, because everyone feels it completely different, but that is a normal, quiet, urban daytime setting, which is half of what they're getting currently, right? So right now, I think they're at between 70 and 80, which is a diesel truck or a noisy urban area, and so they've looked at it and said, can't tell you for sure, but it's certainly going to be a more commonly appropriate noise level at that reduction versus where it stands now, which is almost, it's just below gas lawnmower and it's a little bit below jet engine, but it's pretty high on this chart that the Department of Transportation issues.
Have you discussed with your neighbors, and have they raised any objections to maybe your fence being 2 to 3 feet higher than their fence?
We did. So we met with the neighbor that is north to the east of us, and there were no issues from them. We also met with neighbors across the road, which it's not clear that they would have any, because there's no neighbors obviously on the left or the west side. We met with the neighbors on the north as well. We only met with one of them because I think the house was empty. It was on sale when we moved in. But we've talked to all the neighbors.
So obviously, it's going to have the benefit of blocking that noise, but how do you think that's gonna look from your side? As you look at your fence, your new high
Yeah.
fence, it's gonna
We
block all the,
We actually have a lot of foliage
on the inside of
on
the lot?
the inside.
Yeah.
And in fact, the current fence we have has foliage. It's kind of climbing, we call climbing foliage as well. So I think frankly, from that, I don't think there's an unsightliness issue. In addition, there's further foliage once you're going down slope to the tracks. So I don't think it's.
No, we did study that elevation. I specifically brought that up to them when we were on site. I pretty much built a little mock-up and showed the shadows, and they acknowledged that, that was something that they still were comfortable with for the benefit, of the neighborhood.
Right.
They looked at it, and then there still is a little bit of room on both sides to continue any type of landscape screening, at least on a portion, if not the entire elevation.
Can you,
And-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then Nathan, is there a setback requirement?
No, there's no setback requirement for fences.
I'm sorry,
Fences-
from the front yard.
Oh, there's no setback, but within the, for a fence, but within the front yard zoning setback, the maximum fence height is 4 feet. Within that,
Within the-
which I think in this case is the first 50 feet of the property. And then the balance of the property, the maximum fence height is 6 feet. So in front yards and corner side yards, the village limits the fence height to 4 feet. And then in rear yards, the village limits the fence height to 6 feet.
And I'm just looking at the survey that you've mocked up, and it appears that the fence doesn't really go to the very end of the yard.
Yeah, actually we did. Yeah, and I think we were doing that more for. We went as far as we needed to make sure that we covered the diesel. Because
Do we know what that distance is?
you would bring it up at, I believe, another 25 feet, and then you would still have 50 feet to the street.
But from the front property line, what's the distance from that front property line corner to where the fence would begin?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which line you're talking. Let me come over.
The, on the exhibit that you provided, you're showing in red,
Yeah.
where the fence would go. What's the distance from that front corner to where the fence starts? From here to that corner right there. Yeah. Okay, that may be a question they have.
Are there any
I don't have any more
13-foot,
questions.
are there any 13-foot fences elsewhere in this town? 12-foot fences at 13-foot posts?
Not that I'm aware of on a residential property. There is a ComEd substation on the west end of the downtown business district on Park Avenue, which we probably all drive by all the time and don't really notice,
Right,
but
and
it
we probably
does.
insisted that they
It
have
has
some high fence.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's 12 or 13 feet.
Yeah.
But
I think there's a few, maybe historical ones, or some really big stone ones by the lake, where they're big. I mean,
Yeah.
they're significant, but they're for aesthetics.
Buckley columns with
right.
then wrought iron fencing in between. There are those remnants all
Maybe
throughout
10
the
feet.
village.
I don't know, 10 or 12.
So, you've made an excellent presentation. I almost always vote against fences. You made a better presentation than most of the folks who I vote against. But this is so much bigger than what we typically allow, that I really feel like I'd want to ask the village board whether they wanted to change the zoning code to recognize that, if you're right on top of the train station, because that does seem maybe a little bit unusual, but 13 feet is so high. I think you're entitled to do whatever you want as far as how it looks to you, but there is the Green Bay Trail, and we have a responsibility to the people that use the Green Bay Trail not to have some huge fence. If I knew that Winnetka had huge fences all along, but I don't actually remember that. This is a tough one for me.
How far, can we see that picture again? How far
This one?
away would the fence be from the Green Bay Trail?
It would be, I think it was about 75 feet or
It's,
so.
it's significant. I mean, I was gonna say it's definitely more than 50 feet. I don't know if we put a tape on it exactly.
It's up on a bluff, too.
In addition, there's an incline. And then there,
from the Green Bay Trail?
During the summer,
during the summer, no way.
winter, yes.
in the
During
winter
the
when there's
winter,
no foliage, sure.
You'd see some,
So
yeah,
it's it
two
probably is
trees.
close to 70 feet and probably another 30 feet down from where that is now.
So I don't love this one, but I recognize this is a. So if somebody came in for a huge fence and they said, I used to be president of the United States, I need it for security, I would understand that and I would recognize that as really unique. Your presentation, there's no question it's serious, but, you know, babies aren't unique. And
Can I add something? Sorry.
sure, absolutely.
We are the only house in Glencoe that is on a station. There is no, we drove up to the Glencoe station, so you've got Glencoe and Harvard Woods. There's no other house that is that proximity. If you're in Glencoe, you've got like 100 feet plus to the first house, and then it's all commercial on the other side of the street on Green Bay. And for whatever reason, we are that only house that is right there, and the configuration of the diesel when it pulls up, and the idling has now gotten, I don't know what the record we now have a gauge. How long is it there? And it's over, it's 20 to 30 minutes. That might just be they're waiting for signal, or they're, at 10, 11 p.m. at night.
I do think that's the most unique part about it, is that the sound engineer has stated that it's not the sound of the train. We all acknowledge that the train, the sound is not the train. It is the station itself, that just is significantly worse.
How long does it take to build this fence?
Nothing significant. We haven't gone through the exact construction details of it yet, but it's be a couple-week project at best.
Oh, yeah, that shows up on the survey.
So if we were to vote this down, they couldn't come back for a while? Is this covered by the same thing as the zoning code where they have 6 months before they can come back?
I have to check on that. I thought it was a year, actually.
All right, okay. So, but if we don't decide, if we postpone it, then they can come back. I'm not comfortable doing this. As a rule, there's not actually a good reason other than somebody wants one to have a fence, but I will grant you've made a better presentation than anybody ever has. But B, it's a huge fence, way bigger than anything that I've seen us approve. But I recognize this is kind of unique. Having babies isn't unique, but the point that you're the only house that's right next to a train station where the train would stop and make noise for an extended period of time, I get that that's unique. But before I'm just one of the people on this board, but before I voted for it, I'd want to have a discussion with Nathan and with the president of the village and about how they feel about this entire thing. So if you have the votes to get passed, congratulations. If you don't, what I would recommend is that you stand for us punting for a month while we investigate. But I don't know what my fellow board members think. But this is, people come to us for a variance if they want 7 feet. Almost always I vote no. I sometimes get outvoted, but almost always I vote no because I don't, we're a non-fence town, basically. There's some towns that have big fences, we don't. But I don't know how the other people on the board feel about it.
I mean, I'm torn. Like Howard said, we made a really good case. I think the station is a good case. As a mother of young children, I also relate greatly and know that if we were to vote and say no, 6 months is an incredible long time. But I'm torn. I feel like it's setting a precedent that makes me.
So we might be able to investigate and decide. I don't usually worry about precedent. Plus, if we determine that you've got the only house in town with this issue, I actually, part of what I don't love the idea of having big fences along the Green Bay Trail. I understand why you'd want it, there's a train track there, but in general, I don't love it. But before, I would be happy to continue investigating, but again, if you have 4 votes, take it and run. I just don't know whether you do.
Could we,
I'll say this about precedent, because that's what I worry about, but if this is the only house that's right at the station,
It
you
feels
can
really
distinguish,
different. Yeah.
it's different, and you can distinguish other cases.
That's where.
And this isn't a fence that's blocking anybody's view from another house. This is on that train. And I also think that when you're looking and buying a house and you know you're buying a house on the train tracks, you don't necessarily anticipate how long that train sits there. I ride the train. It's gotten slower.
It has. I was going to say the same thing as you were saying. I'm like, it really has been slower.
So
I've got a follow-up question before there's a vote. Who could see this fence? Where's this fence? I know you'll be able to see it from your
Sure.
house, but other than you, I'm assuming that people walking up and down or riding up and down the Green Bay Trail would be able to see it.
So in the, no, they would not be able to see 100% for sure in the summer, because the foliage, just goes and covers it. I would say in the fall when they shed their leaves, it's still, you've still got all of the trees there. Because as you know, the Green Bay Trail is right at track level, and at that part, the track there's a decline in that part, because you're now going into Winnetka, and so you've got that slope, and so for them to actually see it from the Green Bay Trail, they probably would have to get on the tracks, and it's definitely in the summer, most ones the leaves are there, not visible. In the fall, when the leaves are gone, very hard to see as well.
What I'm asking, to be more specific, you've got this designation of visibility safety.
Yeah.
What is that, and how does
okay.
that
The reason
correspond to who could see the fence?
No, the reason we had that was we thought, so I was speaking to a friend of mine that had done something like this, that folks care about line of egress, line of sight, when you're driving off your lot. And since we were going to move the line forward, we wanted to show that, hey, if you're driving off the lot, there's nothing blocking you. You've got a full, sight line across. But then we were then told that that's actually not an issue in code here. So that's why we drew that line there. It was more, hey, this is not something that will block you while you're trying to pull out. That's why it's in the graphic.
Would someone driving, I was going to say up and down, but it looks like east-west roughly, on Scott Avenue, would they be able to see it going toward the tracks and then after you cross the tracks?
So there's actually a bridge, because we're now depressed, and so they're actually coming over the bridge and they're elevated. So they would see it once they go past all the foliage as they pass the house. But then they'd have to kind of be turning back. And then I think for folks that are driving,
eastbound?
so folks that are right
Yeah.
in front of the house, this is the view that they would
Yeah.
have if you were looking right in front
I
of
would
the
see that all
house.
the time.
And this is the fence, and then right on this side you've got the trail, you've got the decline to the trail.
Do you have any kind of color scheme in mind for your fence? You said it's wood, or is it just comes a natural product? You said you could paint it? I mean,
you could stain it. We're thinking we'll either leave it natural or the same dark brown color that parts of the fence are on kind of on the other side. So it's going to be a wood.
so that'd be really visible in the winter, right? And
Versus
my only concern was you create a real tunnel effect, I would think, walking down the sidewalk, but I don't know if that really harms anyone or not, but
the sidewalk or the
you're walking,
trail?
when you're taking the sidewalk, so some people when they go to the Metro use that sidewalk because there's a pedestrian bridge
Right.
and you just go that way.
When you walk along that side, because of the elevation of the grade itself and then the fence, you're already adjacent to his 6-foot fence, which is already above
Yeah.
that because of that elevation. elevation. So
It-
I'm not sure the feeling
Yeah.
really would change that much. Sure, it would be taller. I mean, if you looked up,
It would be significantly taller.
but I mean, it's not that there's not something so already adjacent to
Yeah.
there. It's
I
not
mean,
like
I walked down the path and looked at it, and it appeared like the fence was on some railroad ties, and I'm 6'6", and I was shorter than the fence because I think your property elevation is probably a little higher than the walkway, but it'd be like a tunnel, right? Because if you added, I mean, think of a fence. This wall here is only 10 feet, so.
So you were there recently, did you see the climbing plants on the fence? So
I
it's
noticed a
got the
lot of
foliage.
nice landscaping,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of trees still that have been left from the Friends of the Green Bay Trail who've gone through and
Planted.
kind of
Yeah.
cleaned out all the invasive
Yeah.
species.
The point I was making was right now it's 6 and then 2 additional with the crisscross so you can see through. I think you give another 2. Is that the code? 6 and then
Oh,
1 or 2?
6 is the maximum.
What if you have like transparent
A basket weave.
basket weave or something?
6 is the maximum.
We do 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is way,
We give an allowance of
It's like
6 additional
two-
inches for post
Okay,
caps and things.
because there's a foliage climbing tree or climbing plant right now, which is actually another 2 or 3. So if you walk down it, you would have seen the wood and then you would have seen the climbing plants as well. So I guess what I'm saying is it's already kind of up there, kind of around the 8 or 9 because of the plants growing on top of the current 6.
Yeah, okay, I have a picture of that.
You see what I'm saying? So the plant is already kind of taking you all the way up. to
Yeah,
the
you have
9.
a bunch of wisteria
And
or
that's
something
6
growing
Yeah,
over the
that
top.
grows over
That's
the
6
top
feet?
there.
That fence is 6 feet. There's a little basket section of that. You can't really see it that one. See that?
Can I just ask a
Up on top.
question about this? Where it says Metra on your drawing,
Yeah.
is that the station? Like
That's
where-
actually, we took exactly where the carriages and the engine lines up. So the diesel kind of lines up between 1 and 2 here.
Uh-huh.
And then the station building is, the parking lot is kind of here and the station building is here.
I have a procedural question. What is the propriety of tabling this issue and not voting on it today, giving the board and board members a chance to review this maybe a little more thoroughly, maybe drive by the house so we can get a realistic idea as to the current size of the fence? In other words, do a little more investigation and think about this issue. They have a wonderfully strong case, and I want to help, especially being a father of 3 kids. Trust me, the best time of my day is when they're sleeping. So I definitely want to help, and you have a very strong case. And you also have a very large fence that you're proposing. And I don't want to make a rash decision for me, but I don't know what the protocol is for something like that.
we punted 2 or 3 times before we finally voted in favor of something 4 to 3 a year or 2 ago.
Just
That
from-
doesn't mean, we're always going to do it, but if we punt, then they're not penalized. That doesn't mean, we're going to say yes if you come back, but we can't do that. And what I always recommend is, because I see this from the point of view of the applicant, if you think you have the votes, go for it. And we're willing to sort of practice, and as we'll hint. But if you don't, then let us table it, and
And if it's tabled, when will they be able to come back?
we
The
can
next month?
we can do it the next weekend. Yeah, we can do it the next month. I think do we need to renotice it or no?
So just from a code perspective, the applicant, unless the board absolutely felt they did not have enough information to vote tonight, the applicant could request a vote. The applicant could also request a continuance. The board could specifically request further evidence be presented or further questions be answered. If you do choose to continue this, I would recommend that you continue it to a date certain. You find a date which everyone could attend. You pick that date, you set it at this meeting by motion, and then you do not have to publicly notice it again, because it's presumed that anyone who cared about this docket would care enough to come here and hear that tonight.
I mean, typically what we've done is punt to the next meeting.
Well, I have a question. Can we do like a shadow vote?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we know
Yeah.
where a shadow vote?
Yes.
Straw
A
poll.
straw.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We absolutely should do that, because if by some chance they have the votes, you should go for it. Just in the interest of full disclosure, you don't yet have mine.
I think it would make sense to table this until the next meeting to give the board members a chance to ruminate a little more on this and maybe do a little independent research to get a better idea as to what your proposal is. For me personally, I'm thinking, I'm just under 6 feet. I'm wondering how high the ceiling is, and I'm trying to picture in my head where this fence is going to be geographically on the plat of survey, who's going to be able to see it. And it's a little difficult for me to grasp the reality of it when I'm looking at two-dimensional pictures. I would like to do a little more research and maybe readdress this issue.
I would caution that site visits are absolutely appropriate from the perspective of due process, because it's presumed that all members of the public could have the same access. We do need to be careful when we talk about research, that we're not talking, the burden is on the applicant to provide any documentary evidence, research studies, anything like that. And so we just want to be careful about that. If there's any information, like I said, that if there's further technical information that you'd like from the applicant, it's absolutely appropriate to request that of them to bring forward at a further hearing.
Okay. Anybody else want to say where you...
Well, I think you need 4 votes.
Well, you're right, you don't have it now.
You don't have 4 votes, I think, is basically.
Now, Dave Friedman isn't here, might be here next time. I don't know where he would be. But, in the interest of full disclosure, I voted for one fence. I was sorry about it. I almost always vote against these things, so you haven't done anything wrong by not getting my vote at this point. But you still need 4 votes. You don't have it. So I would recommend that you request that we punt till next month. I think if it will help your cause if you can show that you're actually the only house in the town with this issue. I don't know that's true, but or there are two houses or something, but the train tracks run through the entire town, so it's less persuasive if there are many houses with this issue.
I think photographs, actual photographs from the track or the trail looking up would be helpful.
Look, if you...
I appreciate the time and the brain power you all really be thinking about this with us. I really appreciate that.
Is there a sample of the fence that we could see?
Yeah, so this is a physical sample. No, we've got some brochures here, but we could probably request one. I think you see the wood.
I mean, I don't know.
So is there, are you going to request, are you requesting that we postpone this for a month so you can present additional information? That's what you should do.
Yes, I will be honest,
Okay.
what I'm struggling with, I've got your pictures. I'll get pictures, potentially a sample of the wood.
Yes.
Just would Nathan be able to communicate a formal request list, or it doesn't kind of work like that?
Oh.
Take pictures of the Winnetka, the fences on the Winnetka, like similar to the pictures from
Yeah.
your, for
We
your
could get
property,
pictures
like
of
look
Winnetka
up
as
to
well?
the Winnetka, since you say the Winnetka
Okay.
ones are in the range of the 10 feet, so similar, it'd be helpful to see
Sure.
from the trail.
So the short answer is I think I got from our expert legal counsel that we're not going to have a formal list of stuff that you actually have to do, and we're not in a position to commit to what we have to do. But you've heard us, and you should feel free to inquire informally of village staff. so that you can make the best possible case next time, which will be, what is that, August?
That'll be Monday, August 7th.
Okay.
And staff can definitely provide draft minutes. They won't be the final minutes,
Okay.
but they will be a reflection of the discussion.
This is about as long a meeting as we have had in my tenure. We're not even done. I apologize for making you stay here this long. You made you made an excellent presentation. I don't want to, I just spent the week with my daughter and her 3-month-old, and it didn't take much for him to start screaming. So that's, babies are often screaming and unhappy. But
No, thank you. Thank you.
but I'm sorry we couldn't. We always want to make people happy, and so I'm sorry that we haven't yet. I can't promise we will. I particularly can't promise I will. But is there a second? Is there a motion and then a second to postpone for a further presentation on August 7th?
So this would be the motion that would be in order would be a motion to continue the public hearing on this docket for further consideration to the next meeting of the Fence Board of Appeals on August 7th, 2017.
So moved.
Might I ask one more question? Or
Absolutely.
Okay, very quick. It was hard for us. We drove around and we saw some fences that were probably 7, 8, maybe some 9. Is there any guidance or even some tolerance, kind of more comfort level for where you guys might be,
So-
or you don't?
So you should ask Nathan, and he'll give you, our history as best he can. Now, this is his first meeting doing this, but he's been hanging around for, 15, 16 years, so he knows all about it. He'll help you any way he can. With zoning, there's a tolerance by percentage that's allowed for various things. But for fence, there isn't. It's just, this is it, but we can make an exception. This is a huge fence. Now, you can maybe make it look small compared to what it's next to, but, by Glencoe standards, it's a huge fence. When I was on the village board, there was a very wealthy guy who had a fancy house, and the fence was sort of part of the house, and it kept going. And he did it, and it was 8 feet tall, I think. And then the village said, hey, 6 feet. And he said, tough. And we litigated with him for a couple of years, and we spent a bunch of money, and he spent a bunch of money. And I think we eventually settled where he paid all of our fees plus something else. It seemed unsatisfactory to me, but it also didn't seem like we should be spending the town's money on this guy's fence. And so he got his fence for about $500,000. I'm not. So I'm not
I'll stop
recommending.
at the lottery and buy it.
I'm not recommending that, but if you're asking what happens, and the answer is, this is a huge fence from our point of view, but you have made a better presentation than anybody else that's come in for a fence. But you don't have it yet, so you need 4 votes. Do we need to vote on this? Is it a roll call or a?
No, that motion can be,
Okay.
that doesn't require a roll call. That
Okay,
can be
all
by
in favor?
voice vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Sorry to put you through this long night, but you still have hope.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything on the fence board before we go to our zoning commission? Is there a motion to adjourn fence board?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's have a roll call for the zoning commission.
Commissioner Carlson,
Here.
Commissioner Elsesser,
Here.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Here.
Commissioner Satter,
Here.
and Chairman Rowan.
Here. Okay, we're gonna, I think actually we have minutes, because we did
Yeah, we did.
one of these. So first, let's consider whether to approve the April 17, 2017 zoning commission meeting minutes, which have been circulated and which looked okay to me. Is there a motion to approve or disapprove?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
All right.
Anyone opposed? Okay. The next item is a public hearing to consider the request of David Lukes, or Laux, I'm not sure, of Healthios Capital Markets for special use permit to allow a ground floor office use that is currently restricted to only a second floor in the B1 Central Business District for the property at 662 through 666 Vernon Avenue. Please tell us who you are and why we should approve this. And
Hi, I'm David
I
Laux.
apologize that it's 8:45.
I'm David Laux, and I'm a resident of Glencoe, and business owner for the last 15 years with offices in neighboring Northbrook. Have a firm in the investment banking business with headquarters here in Chicago and offices in 3 other locations around the world. My wife is a longtime business owner in Glencoe, and as I said, we're recent residents. I've for the last 3 or 4 years been looking for locations for our firm, and have envisioned that as part of a relocation we could move to a village like Glencoe. Since we have been frequenting Glencoe the last 16 years, it's an incredibly vibrant environment, both for commerce as well as business. We have a firm that employs senior professionals who commute from the city and commute from the suburbs. And as we were looking for a new location, I came upon the building across the street at 662 to 666 Vernon. As people may recall, it used to be the theater for the bookstore, and in the back was the theater. And on both the north and the south side of that property were building were also were retail spaces. For the last few years, the building turned over, I think, in 2010, and then for the last few years, the retail space has been largely vacant. The second floor offices, which at one point had been administration for the theater, and now there's a month-to-month lessee in the south retail space. And so as we were thinking about the building, it's really a wonderful old building. Nathan was kind enough to send along some old pictures of what it had been. And the bones of the building are not only historic, but really quite appealing. It sits on 10,000 square feet of land, and the building is about 8,600 square feet. It has some restrictions that make it not ideal for traditional retail or restaurants or others. I'll describe those in a minute. The first is that it doesn't have any rear access, and the reason for that is that the property just to the west of it is private property, and so nobody can access the building either to the rear. There's a fence that blocks any access to the building or its property from the west side. So either for parking or for any uses that would require rear access, it's quite limited. It's not the reason that any one use should be more ideal than another, but it happens to be a characteristic that doesn't really bother us, because all of our professionals would come in through the front access. Our vision for the building is to restore it to its historical glory, and it has wonderful high arch ceilings. If you go into the back where Writers Theater used to be, you can see the bones of the building with trusses and old brick. It has cement. It sort of has a cement back wall, which isn't a weight-bearing wall. You can actually open it up to what would be a great garden space. So the ability to sort of restore the building to something that was really truly magnificent early on, but also to, in the process, open it up to the surrounding landscape would be really nice. The building right now is under contract, but pending obviously the commission's determinations. We have done some preliminary work on it, but I'm mindful of the fact that we're asking for something that doesn't have a precedence like this, and nonetheless have an intention to build all the designs as we have the permission to do so. If you look at the building, it has it has beautiful brick archways that used to be access points for autos and a garage point, and then it has now a sort of facade over it, which is kind of gray and cement-like that you can take off and restore, in addition to the inside of the building. And so we would hope to try to restore it in a way that would be fitting of what was the historic heritage of the building, but also of the neighborhood. Just to describe one more about our employees, the business day is normal to them, but they would be great users of the village, of the town, of the restaurants, of the stores. Many of them live in the suburbs, but about half of them still live in the city, so accessing through the train would be something that we would do.
Glencoe, you said it seemed like a vibrant town, and for the first time in the 50-plus years that I've lived in this town, I actually agree that that's true as a writer's theater. Here's the problem I have at this moment. I think 10 years ago, we would have looked around and said, gee, we can't get a retail store to stay in this town. We might as well just take it. But the goal throughout the entire time I've been here has been to have retail on the first floor. I think we still want that. And at this particular moment, when the town does seem vibrant, when you leave Writers Theater, there are actually people at the wine bar, and I am loath to give up in sort of prime, potentially retail space. I'm loath to give it up without at least thinking about it a little bit more. I got my packet. It just seems like a really big decision that goes to the guts of the idea for the business district for us to do. And I appreciate that you're here, but I'm not really ready to give up on retail. Is there any way you could include a retail component, or it just doesn't work?
No, I think that we could include the retail. I think we could. We don't necessarily have full need for the full part of the building. But I recognize that request is, there's still a request to have some part of the building, but we can include that.
There are a couple of things I'll say. One, we're happy to have everybody in the business district that's there, but nobody gets special points if they're banks, dry cleaners, real estate, travel agent. I mean, we love them, but they don't produce sales tax in it, and it sounds like you would bring in excellent people and you'd restore the building, and that's all great. But retail is what the village plan is about. 10 years ago, that was a joke. We just, and maybe it'll turn out to be a joke because everyone will be buying everything at Amazon. But if we had more restaurants, that'd be good. If we had stores, that'd be good. And the plan, the request that you've made currently, doesn't have that component. So I'm a little troubled by it. Also, I've talked to folks at the village, and they're periodically thinking that maybe they should do something about the parking thing in the back, and maybe they will. It would require.
What parking thing?
Well, right now it's private property, but the village does have the power to you know.
Oh, like eminent domain?
Yeah, they do.
Oh,
Who
And
owns that?
they do, and
Who owns that?
Friedman, I think.
Freeman? And he's got the buildings to the south and to the west off of Hazel,
You
is
know,
that right?
And,
To the north,
To the north?
and, you know,
the
these are,
Winnicky building.
these are
The
all,
old Winnicky building?
these are all honorable guys, but, you know, there was, until very recently, there was never anything to talk about. I mean, it was just, this was a town where restaurants came to die, and
Right.
we had some retailers who were committed to the town and stayed, but it's got to be tough. But it just looks like, I mean, right now is potentially a window when maybe it's going to happen here, and I'm not ready to say, oh, I'm giving up what potentially is. I mean, I get you're not going to put a Subaru dealer there, which was what there was when I was a kid. But anyway, this is another. So I'm not ready to vote for it. I don't know about the rest of my cohorts. What's the protocol? I suppose we should do a little straw poll. Is there anybody that's hot to approve this and send it on to the village right now?
Well, I had a couple
Yeah,
questions and maybe
Go ahead.
comments. So the property is for sale by Taraco. And I wasn't aware it was, to be honest, but do you know how long it's been available?
It's been available for more than a year. They tried, it was on sale for about a year. They lowered the price about 5 months ago.
And I think right there is starting, is one key bit of evidence that this property probably won't meet the needs of retailers, likely because it's going to need a massive amount of infrastructure work and redevelopment, interior renovation work. Doesn't have rear access, which could maybe get done through condemnation, but who's going to stick around and wait for that? And also the trend within a lot of villages, Wilmette, where I was on a board of advisory board, have gone. The pendulum is swinging the other way, and they're recognizing that you need to have a balance of some professional users, retailers. You can't have a whole downtown of retailers in this market because the demographic pie is 50%. Half of it is in the lake. You're not going to draw anybody from the east into the village. You look at the successes, recent successes with Guild Hall, but how many Guild Halls can this town support? And the other restaurant that's tried to open several times in the former
Right, you're thinking of Vernon's.
what was the old Vernon's? Yeah, Vernon's.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just been a parade of failures because the space isn't great, and everybody keeps thinking that they can, invent the mousetrap better. So, I'm inclined to support this for the fact that I think it'd be great to have a international business in downtown Glencoe that's drawing more professionals in, and adds bodies that are there on a daily basis. They're going to go over to Starbucks, they're going to go over to the other restaurants, they're going to be around downtown, adding some density. I mean, that's the trend. Add bodies into the downtown either through adding housing units, right? And that's been wanted, but nobody can do it because it's so expensive here. And also some businesses. So Winnebago's changing their comprehensive plan they're starting to rescind their overlay district for retail only. Within the new developments that they're doing. Like I said, Wilmette, they did it, and we're smaller.
I have a question as well. What are the current physical problems with the building?
You have to redo all the piping and plumbing and probably the back of the building has all the old air conditioners. The roof of the building has some of the newer air conditioning, so you could probably keep that. The back of the building is concrete slab. We would turn into more of a landscape area. But in terms of the inside of the building, pretty much have to. Everything's drop ceilings. These kinds of drop ceilings, but lower. And then the outer walls, if you bring down what's now the inner walls, the outer walls are all brick, so you can restore that. But everything else needs to be.
Is your intention to gut the whole building and start anew?
Yeah, what we would do is we would take all of the inside, what now is the inside of the building, except for the outer walls, restore what is it's a curved ceiling that supports exposed beams, which really look great. But all the piping would need to be redone if we were to have, and then in the back, we'd take out the back wall and probably just expose it to the western outlook, because the light there is really great.
I mean, the way it's subdivided now is 3 really strange spaces. They're long and narrow, so that if another retail business came in, you know, I don't know that they could move in the way it is anyway.
No, I think we should look towards getting a proposal that includes some retail, and like I said, there are moving parts, and I understand, I understand the presentation, and I understand both of your points, which are possibly excellent points, but right now a lot of our space already is taken up with travel agents, banks, dry cleaners, and what used to be Fells when I was growing up is a bank, and I just don't want to do anything permanent, and I think maybe we could get a proposal for redevelopment that so that the configuration might be different, but that would include retail, and I know the village has been thinking, and they weren't going to do anything when it was Writers Theater, but it's not now. I know the village has been thinking about whether they could, get a proposal from somebody which included the village using what it could do to free up the parking in the back.
So I have a question. When you say a retail component, are you talking about a retail component of his business?
No, not for the answer. Yeah.
I think you have to, to your point though, I think you have to redesign the entire of the building, even if you're going to allow for retail spaces.
Yeah,
and maybe that's impossible. So I have the impression that the village should be. I have the impression that the village has been sort of thinking about what to do, and it's been a fluid thing. And on the one hand, they're thrilled to see your interest, but because the proposal doesn't include retail at all, it's given me pause. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not ready to pull the trigger at this juncture. There's too much it seems like there's still too much possibility for Glencoe. But maybe I'm going to get outvoted. I mean, I don't know whether Deborah. I don't know whether.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're asking us to do something
No,
permanent and big.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you're you got a serious business. You want to put real money in it. That's also permanent and big. But from our point of view, I'm not ready to do it. And it sounds like notwithstanding the excellent points made by Mr. Satter, the whole group of us isn't ready to do it. How do we not shoot this down, but foment the kind of discussion that he needs to have?
Can I ask one more question?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, Mr. Lennox, you intend to occupy the building with your firm. How much of the space do you really need now? If you were going to consider carving out a retail space, is there any? Are you prepared to answer the question? Maybe you're not. Could you?
Probably about a third of it, maybe a little more.
That you need, or that could be
That we
retail?
need.
A third. And ideally, I mean, obviously, you're asking to be on the ground floor because if you only need a third, you could be. Is there some second floor space?
There is some second floor space. It's not clear if you put it's not clear how the design. There's not enough space up there. It's about 1,100 square feet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you need to be.
End up having to have at least some portion of the first floor.
So there seems like there is some degree of feasibility about combining both the retail aspect as well as the office aspect of
There is.
Have you talked with, you know, I mean, I don't, you know, I don't know whether the proposal just came out of the blue or whether you've been talking to the village for months. Have you been talking to the village?
Yes, I have. The
Okay,
village's been
okay.
great. And been guiding us on the rear access, on the discussions with respect to potential parking, on challenges with respect to businesses that would need access to the rear. Also guiding us in terms of what the precedence has been and the fact that this is certainly doesn't conform to that. But encouraging nonetheless of the dialogue, even if it's, as you said,
What I would like is to be able to get more feedback, you know, from the village, and I just haven't had a chance to get it, and you know.
I would keep in mind that the feedback would be from the village board when you make a recommendation.
Oh, no, I get that, but I think the village staff, I just, you know, we haven't heard anything yet, really. It's a little unusual. I felt like, let's just say, I knew a lot more when we did the Writers Theater, which was, you know, in terms of everything we've done since I've been, that was the cosmic event, and it worked out great. And I feel like we're 1-0 on cosmic events, and I don't want to blow it. And I appreciate that we got to go first, but it would be really helpful to us if you know, there was continued work with the village